Here's a number that might surprise you. Researchers found that by age 40, most people have lost touch with 90% of the friends they once called close. 90%. So the question isn't whether your relationships are changing. They are. The real question is why some connections quietly drain you, while others help you grow. The Buddha identified 3 distinct forces shaping every bond you form. Understand them, and you stop clinging to people out of habit, and start choosing with wisdom. Today, I'll walk you through all 3. In the forests of northern India, at the edge of the Kosala kingdom, the day was slowly tilting toward evening. Light fell in long, slanted beams through the trees, casting thin shadows across the ground. The air was still, barely a breath of wind, just a deep, hushed quiet. That afternoon, a small gathering of monks sat near the Buddha, each one settled in their own way. Some held questions they hadn't yet found the words for. Others wore the look of people searching for something or someone, though they couldn't quite say what. They had all passed through it, the meeting of people, the parting, the meeting again, and somewhere in that endless cycle, they had lost the thread of who they were. Then from somewhere in the group, a quiet voice broke the silence. "Teacher," it said, "I have walked beside so many people, and yet I feel more alone than when I first set out." A few of the others shifted, not to look away, but in the way people move when something true has been spoken aloud in a room where they too had been carrying it. The Buddha did not answer at once, but reached down and picked up a small stone from the earth beside him, turning it slowly in his fingers. He held it up, not to show the group, but to look at it himself, the way a person might examine something ordinary they had walked past 1,000 times without stopping. Then he set it down again, gently, in exactly the place he had taken it from. It was Ananda who spoke. Ananda had walked beside the Buddha for many years, gentle, sharp of memory, and known for the kindness he offered to everyone he met. But that afternoon, there was something uncertain in his voice. "Blessed One," he said quietly. "Good friends, good companions, good fellowship, is this not half of the spiritual life?" Perhaps even as he said it, Ananda thought he already knew the answer. Of course good friendships matter, of course they count for something, maybe even for half. But the Buddha was silent for a moment, looking at him. Then slowly he spoke. "No, Ananda, that is not so. Good friends, good companions, good fellowship, this is not half of the spiritual life, it is the whole of it." Ananda drew a quiet breath. Not half, the whole. For a long moment no one in the group could find a word, the weight of it just sat there. Then another monk, hesitant, asked, "But Blessed One, who then is a good friend? What kind of person should we walk beside?" The Buddha gave a gentle nod, and then he began to speak of a poem, a teaching that would later be gathered into a text called the Metta Sutta. It opens like this: "One who wishes to reach a place of true peace should practice this, be capable, honest, and faithful to their word, be gentle and free from arrogance." The Buddha paused there. The monks let the words settle into them. "A good friend," he continued, "is not the one who comforts you, not the one who praises you." He waited. "It is the one who walks this path alongside you, capable, sincere, gentle, someone who is trying to embody these very qualities themselves. Stand close to that person." A monk spoke up softly. "Blessed One, does that mean we become like those we are near?" The Buddha smiled, gently. "Not become like them," he said. "You emerge from the being together itself." No one understood it immediately, but no one felt the need to push. A single breath of wind moved through the trees and then went still. The Metta Sutta continued in the Buddha's voice. "As a mother would protect her only child with her own life, so let a boundless heart go out to all living beings." This is not a command to go and find someone, the Buddha said. It is asking whether you can be like that mother, and it is saying find those who are asking the same question. Stay near them. Ananda sat for a long while, his head slightly bowed. Then he looked up and said quietly, "Blessed One, is choosing good friends the same as choosing who we want to be?" The Buddha did not answer, but his eyes held something warm, a stillness that was neither a yes nor a no, but an open space, handing the question back. Ananda looked down at his own hands, as if seeing them for the first time. Hands that had carried the Buddha's robe, filled his bowl, arranged his seat for decades. Hands shaped, he now understood, not only by practice, but by proximity. A pair of monks were walking the garden path together in the fading light, not speaking, simply moving in the same direction. And somehow, watching them, that felt like answer enough. Good friends are the whole of the spiritual life. At first, this sounds almost simple, like gentle advice to surround yourself with good people. Sensible, obvious even. But Buddhist wisdom reaches further than that. Let me ask something first. Why do we suffer in our relationships? Usually we say, because that person is cold, because they don't understand me, because they let me down. But Buddhism looks somewhere slightly different. The suffering doesn't come from the other person failing to be a certain way. It comes from the fact that we've quietly fixed them in place, decided somewhere inside that they should be a certain way. A friend should be kind. A companion should understand me. Someone close to me should be on my side. These shoulds sit in the heart like glass. And every time reality bumps against them, the glass cracks and we bleed. The wound isn't caused by the other person. It comes from our inability to release the shape we've demanded they hold. This is how suffering grows. So where does the Metta Sutta fit in? The Metta Sutta is not a checklist of what to look for in a friend. When it speaks of being capable, honest, gentle, and free from arrogance, it isn't cataloging someone else's virtues. It is describing a direction, a way of being that one tries to move toward. What the Buddha was saying, I believe, is this: stand near those who are also trying to move in that direction. To choose a friend, then, is also to choose which way you want to face. But here's something worth pausing on. Buddhism holds that the self is not a fixed thing waiting to be discovered. We tend to assume that somewhere inside us there's a real, unchanging self, one that stays the same regardless of where we are or who we're with. But Buddhism gently asks, is what you call yourself not rather the accumulation of who you've spent time with, what you've looked at, what words have been spoken near you? When we spend years near someone whose words are harsh and heavy, the heart slowly stiffens. When we spend time near someone who keeps asking sincere questions, questions begin to rise in us too. The I doesn't come first. The relationship comes first. The self emerges from within it. This might sound unsettling at first, but looked at another way, much of the difficulty you feel, the heaviness of certain days, the sense of being stuck, that may not be coming from some fixed flaw in your character. It may be arising from the particular web of connections you're currently inside. And if the connections shift, or even if just the way you see them shifts, the self that emerges can begin to change, quietly, from the inside out. That, I think, is what the whole of the spiritual life is really pointing to. A monk I once read about spent years meditating alone in a cave, convinced that solitude was the purest path. When he finally descended to the village below, he found himself harsher than before, quicker to judge, slower to soften. The silence had given him space to rehearse his own fixed views, undisturbed. It was only among others, with all the friction and surprise that brings, that something in him began, reluctantly, to loosen. Let's bring this a little closer to home. Think about your workplace for a moment. Maybe there's someone nearby who complains, every day, steadily, like a slow drip. At first you listened, you nodded along, but somewhere along the way, you noticed you were using the same words, seeing things through the same narrow window. Have you felt that? And on the other side, maybe you've sat near someone who works quietly, with a kind of honesty and care, and something in you, without you trying, began to settle. The rush in your chest slowed a little, a kind of ease crept in. This isn't a matter of being influenced by someone, it's something more fundamental. From the Buddhist perspective of dependent arising, the self that shows up in a given moment is shaped by the relationships surrounding it. In a room full of complaint, a complaining self arises. Near someone who keeps asking honest questions, a questioning self comes forward. Which one is the real you? That might be the wrong question. Both are you, the you that emerged from each particular web of connection. Now let's move to something even closer. Maybe you have a friend you've known for years, someone who consistently dismisses what you say. That's not quite right. You're just like that, aren't you? Perhaps you've been absorbing those words for a long time. In those moments you may have thought, maybe I'm the one who's wrong. But through Buddhist eyes, a different question arises. What version of yourself is being called into being inside that relationship? The you who shrinks when criticized, the you who swallows your words, the you who eventually stops speaking at all. That isn't your weakness. That is the self that has been summoned by those particular conditions. And now the Metta Sutta comes back into focus. Capable, honest, gentle, someone who is genuinely trying to live that way. Why does staying near such a person matter so much? Notice the phrasing, trying to live that way. Not a perfected saint, not someone who has it all figured out, someone moving in the same direction, uncertain in the same ways, but still asking. In a relationship like that, the same questions begin to rise in you. That's not coincidence. That's how the self is made. For those of you raising children, this may land differently still. Children don't watch what we say so much as what we feel, and who we choose to stand near. If a parent lives in constant criticism of others, the child's world quietly takes on that color. If a parent turns toward people with honesty and warmth, the child grows a sense of what it means to do the same. What we teach matters less than who we are in front of them. Choosing who to be near isn't a grand, once-in-a-lifetime decision. It happens today, in who you sit with, whose words you let in, whose company you return to. And in that quiet accumulation, today's version of you is gently, steadily taking shape. Even the silence you choose carries weight. The conversation you step away from, the room you decide not to re-enter. These two are acts of tending. A farmer doesn't only plant seeds, she also clears the ground. So perhaps the practice begins not with a search for the right people, but with an honest look at who you are already standing beside, and what self has quietly grown there. You don't need to do anything big today. You really don't. But here is one small thing. If you're willing, tonight when the day has settled and you have a quiet moment, ask yourself this: today, who was I near? And what version of me showed up? Not to judge, not to blame anyone, including yourself, just to look. What words did you use today? After a certain conversation, did you feel lighter or heavier? When you were near a particular person, which part of you came forward? This is close to a practice the Buddhist students actually did. Something called right mindfulness. Not adding anything, not fixing anything, just noticing clearly what is actually happening right now. You begin there. And one more thing, if it feels right. If there is someone in your life whose presence makes you feel even slightly more like yourself, a little more at ease, a little more honest, make a small space for them this week. Not a long commitment, not a deep conversation if you don't have the energy. Just a cup of tea together, a few words exchanged, that's enough. But as you do, don't think of it as building a good relationship. Just notice, quietly, what self shows up when you're with them. Something might come into view. What exactly, I can't say. That part is yours to discover. I won't promise this will change your life, but turning even a little attention toward the connections of today can gently shift the way things look. And that shift, small as it seems, is how the path begins, according to Buddhism. Maybe you'll notice that with one friend you laugh more easily. With another, you find yourself saying things you actually mean. Not to judge, not fixing anything, just to look. What words did you use today? After a certain conversation, did you feel lighter or heavier? When you were near a particular person, which part of you came forward? After sitting quietly by a window, that the tree outside has been blooming for days without your knowing. Nothing dramatic needs to follow that noticing, just the seeing itself, honest and unhurried. Today, was there a moment when you were near someone and something in you quietly eased? When that happened, what did that version of you feel like? You don't need to answer right now. Just let the question rest in your chest tonight, the way a stone rests at the bottom of still water. Maybe it was a friend sitting beside you without speaking, or a stranger who held a door and met your eyes for just a second. That was not nothing. That was the world briefly remembering itself. And you, without even knowing it, were part of that remembering too. The way a single candle doesn't just illuminate itself, but changes the whole room. A monk was once asked what he had learned after 40 years of practice, and he said only this: I stopped thinking I was separate from what I was looking for. Tonight, let that land wherever it needs to. The wisdom of choosing friends begins with knowing which connections to gently release. And we explored that letting go in an earlier teaching on Buddhist relationships. You'll find a link in the description below. The Buddha called good friends the whole of the spiritual life. Hearing that today, you may have found a particular face drifting into your mind. A relationship that made you pause. A quiet ache you weren't quite expecting. That's okay. Let it be there. This isn't about sorting people, not good ones and bad ones, not those worth keeping and those worth leaving. It's much simpler than that. It's just about noticing. Today, who were you near, and who did you become in that nearness? That noticing is where everything begins. The Metta Sutta closes with these words: as a mother protects her only child with her own life, let a boundless heart go out to all living beings. That boundless heart begins with your own connections, not judging them, not rushing to rearrange them, just seeing them clearly with a little kindness. From that seeing, something opens. I'm genuinely glad you found your way here today. If this conversation became even a small part of your evening, one quiet thread in the fabric of your day, that is more than enough. May your night be peaceful, may you rest well. And if tomorrow morning you wake and find yourself reaching for your phone before your feet have touched the floor, perhaps pausing for just a breath, just one, before the notifications begin, is its own small act of kindness toward yourself. The monk Ajahn Chah used to say that the whole path is just this: remembering, forgetting, and remembering again. You have already remembered once today. That is not nothing. Whose face came to mind while you were listening today? One story a day. In a week, your words will change. In a month, your eyes will change. In a year, the same world will look completely different.